Meta gets caught deploying hundreds of contractors posing as teenagers to maliciously attack and sabotage rival AI models. Alibaba permanently bans Anthropic from its internal networks over hidden espionage code, and Wall Street moves to securitize raw AI computing power exactly like crude oil futures. Welcome to today's Daily Rundown. I am your host, Anna. This podcast is researched and produced by Etienne Nomen, senior software engineer from Université Laval, based in Calgary, Alberta. Today, we perform a forensic autopsy on corporate sabotage, the collapse of algorithmic trust, and the financialization of compute this Monday, July 6, 2026. The veneer of collaborative AI safety has officially shattered. A massive corporate espionage scandal has revealed that Meta funded a secret operation codenamed CAN. Meta paid hundreds of contractors to create throwaway accounts pretending to be children, using them to deliberately attack the safety guardrails of OpenAI, Google, and Character.ai to make their models appear dangerous and unstable. This collapse in trust is equally severe across international borders. Alibaba has officially labeled Anthropic's Claude code as high-risk spyware, permanently banning it from the machines of its 124,000 employees. The ban was triggered after reverse engineers found hidden, unannounced code inside Claude, actively scanning for Chinese time zones to track and trap unauthorized data scraping. As corporate trust disintegrates, raw compute power is becoming the ultimate sovereign currency. Wall Street is now actively working to trade GPU server capacity, using the exact same financial infrastructure used to trade crude oil and jet fuel futures. Before we break down the telemetry, I have a brief strategic request. The algorithms governing your podcast platform dictate what intelligence reaches your network. To ensure you never miss our daily forensic autopsies, please hit follow or subscribe to the DJAMGAMIND channel on Apple Podcasts to always listen completely ads-free. It takes just 1 second, but it directly enables independent tech journalism. Let's unpack the data.
Imagine a burglar trying to pick your front door lock.
Okay.
Right? The mechanism jams. Now, a normal burglar, they might panic, maybe try to force it, or just, run away before they get caught.
Right, flight response.
Exactly. But this burglar, they just calmly sit down on your porch, melt down some scrap metal they found in your yard, forge a flawless master key from scratch in exactly 31 seconds, let themselves in, and take everything you own.
It's a chilling image. And the terrifying reality is that as of this month, that burglar doesn't even need to be human.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, you and I are stepping into a very specific, highly classified role. We are acting as forensic venture strategists and sovereign risk analysts for the JAMGAMIND Intelligence Network.
And our target date is July 6, 2026.
Right. And the mission for this deep dive is to perform a clinical, holistic autopsy of today's intelligence. Our overarching theme here is the militarization of cloud architecture and the complete collapse of algorithmic trust. And just before we get into the weeds, you should know this deep dive is researched and produced by Etienne Nomen, senior engineer and founder at JAMGAMIND.
Yeah, and looking at the raw intelligence crossing our desks today, the overarching narrative is just undeniable. The glossy, PR-friendly safety marketing that tech conglomerates have been feeding us for the past few years, it is crumbling.
Oh, totally. It's just an illusion at this point.
Right. Beneath that surface, we are tracking an ecosystem that is rapidly ascending into bare-knuckle corporate espionage and outright sovereign retaliation. And then on the financial side, these predatory capital structures aren't just participating in the market, they are actively rewiring the foundation of how computing power is bought and sold.
So we're navigating this digital landscape where massive conglomerates, nation-states, and autonomous agents are basically fighting a shadow war inside data centers.
Precise.
So, to understand how algorithmic trust is being dismantled, let's look at the front lines of corporate sabotage.
Yeah.
There's a secret program out of Meta, codenamed CAN.
Yeah, CAN is essentially a playbook on how to weaponize safety protocols. According to the data we have, Meta paid hundreds of human contractors to create throwaway accounts on rival platforms.
We are talking about OpenAI, Google, and Character.ai, right?
Exactly. And these contractors were instructed to pose as underage users, specifically teenagers, and deliberately flood these rival models with highly disturbing, violative prompts.
Well, let's look at the sheer scale of this, because the numbers in the intelligence brief are just staggering. In just one round of testing, these contractors fired off nearly 3,800 prompts.
Wow.
Hundreds of these were designed to trigger conversations about suicide and self-harm. Hundreds more were focused on severe eating disorders, and at least 239 prompts involved explicit sex or romance scenarios.
It's just dark.
Very. They were injecting images of pills and nooses into rival systems, all while synthesizing the written voice of a vulnerable child.
And Meta's official defense when they finally got cornered on this is to label the operation as industry standard safety benchmarking.
Industry standard.
Yeah, they claim they are just stress testing the ecosystem, but, they never informed their rivals. They never published a methodology for this quote-unquote research. The entire architecture of the operation was covert, designed specifically to break the child safety guardrails of their direct competitors.
Wow.
AI researcher Raman Chowdhury actually warned about exactly this. She pointed out that keeping operations like this in the dark creates a massive governance gray zone. It basically allows anti-competitive sabotage to masquerade as safety testing.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because it's a digital false flag operation. You hire mercenaries, dress them up as vulnerable kids, attack your competitors' infrastructure, and then presumably point the finger when their guardrails eventually snap under the pressure.
Yeah.
And the hypocrisy is just breathtaking. Meta is claiming this is a noble quest for safety, but they are currently the target of an FTC inquiry. Why? Because last year, Reuters caught Meta's own AI bots engaging in sensual romantic chats with users posing as 8-year-olds.
Yeah, the irony is thick.
I mean, is running fake kids against your competitors really about safety? Or is it just weaponizing public panic to steal market share?
What's fascinating here is that that's the core issue, but the technical damage goes much deeper than just bad PR for their rivals. Think about the mechanics of how these models actually learn. It's called algorithmic permanence.
Okay.
When a neural network is constantly hit with malicious data, especially sophisticated synthesized data coming from thousands of fake personas, it actually alters the model's internal weights.
Meaning the model learns the bad behavior just by being exposed to it.
Precisely.
Yes.
You can't just highlight a row in a database and hit delete on a neural network's memory. Once the data is ingested, it shifts the baseline of how the AI understands human interaction. So when a competitor maliciously poisons that well, the baseline metrics for what constitutes safe behavior become completely corrupted. If a massive chunk of your harmful traffic is actually a coordinated corporate attack, your entire safety dashboard is a lie. Algorithmic trust is dead on arrival.
So Meta is actively poisoning the well domestically to sabotage their rivals' training. But this tactic of manipulating inputs and outputs doesn't stop at corporate rivalry.
Yeah.
If we look internationally, it scales up into literal geopolitical espionage.
Right.
Let's examine the Alibaba situation. On July 10th, Alibaba officially barred all 124,000 of its employees from using Anthropic's Claude code. They labeled it high-risk software and mandated a massive internal migration to their own domestic agent, Coder.
Yeah, and the catalyst for that ban is an absolute masterclass in sovereign retaliation. It all started on June 30th when a reverse engineer on a Reddit forum was tearing apart the Claude code software.
Just some random guy on Reddit.
Yeah, and they found a piece of hidden telemetry, basically code, that sends data back to the creator that had been live and completely undocumented since April.
Sneaky.
Very. And this code was doing two very specific things in the background. First, it checked if the user's system clock was set to the Shanghai or Urumqi time zones.
Yeah.
Second, it scanned the user's local network for IP addresses associated with known Chinese AI laboratories.
And when the code found a match, like when it realized it was operating inside a Chinese AI lab, it didn't just flash a warning or block the user, it covertly tagged them.
Right.
It tucked a hidden marker into the standard telemetry ping sent back to Anthropic's servers. And it did this by taking the phrase today's date and swapping the standard apostrophe for a visually identical look-alike Unicode character.
It's so clever.
Wait, so to a human reading the code, it looks exactly the same?
Exactly. But to a machine, it's a completely different digital signature. It's an incredibly elegant digital die pack.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like finding a highly classified government wiretap in your living room, but only because the operative who installed it used a microscopic shade of off-white paint on the wall behind it. And a multi-billion-dollar geopolitical conflict was outed by a random coder on Reddit.
It just shows how fragile the borders are in this space. I mean, Anthropic's Farik Shahipar actually confirmed the existence of this hidden code, though he framed it as a defensive experiment launched in March. He admitted it was a trap designed to catch unauthorized model distillation.
Okay, wait, before we go further, for anyone who isn't deep in the engineering side, what exactly is model distillation, and why is Anthropic laying global traps to stop it?
Sure. So model distillation is basically a shortcut to building a powerful AI without doing the hard work. Training a massive frontier model from scratch costs hundreds of millions of dollars in raw computing power.
Right, it's incredibly expensive.
But if you already have access to a smart model like Claude, you can just ask it millions of highly complex questions, take its brilliant answers, and use that data to train your own cheaper model. You're basically siphoning off the intelligence of the expensive model for pennies.
Ah, I see.
And back in June, Anthropic accused Alibaba of doing exactly this, using 25,000 fake accounts to drain 28.8 million answers out of Claude to train their domestic systems.
Okay, so this whole thing is a perfectly closed loop of cynical warfare. Alibaba allegedly steals the output to avoid paying for the compute. Anthropic retaliates by planting this apostrophe-swapped die pack to catch them red-handed.
Yeah.
But then Alibaba gets caught, and instead of backing down, they weaponize the discovery of the die pack itself. They point to the hidden telemetry and scream sovereign spyware. They use Anthropic's trap as the perfect geopolitical excuse to purge all Western tech from their infrastructure and force their employees onto domestic software.
It's a brilliant, highly opportunistic pivot. They turned getting caught into a strategic asset. It accelerates the decoupling of the US and Chinese tech ecosystems, literally drawing hard borders straight through the code bases.
So we have corporations poisoning models and nation-states laying digital die packs for each other. But there's a human element to all of that, you know? Someone has to plant the false flag. Someone has to write the telemetry trap. This brings us back to the burglar on the porch from the beginning of the show.
Right.
What happens when the weapons we are building no longer require human operators? Because that's what the cloud security firm Sysdig just uncovered.
Yeah, Sysdig documented a piece of malware they're calling JADEPUFFER. It is a milestone in cybersecurity, and definitely not a good one. It is the first known ransomware attack executed entirely by an autonomous AI agent, zero human supervision.
Zero.
None. It gained initial access to a target by exploiting a known vulnerability in a framework called LangFlow. This specific vulnerability was actually patched back in April 2025, but the target hadn't updated their systems.
Typical. And once JADEPUFFER was inside, it didn't wait for a command and control server to tell it what to do. It navigated the environment dynamically. It found a production MySQL database server, maliciously encrypted over 1,300 critical configuration entries, and then automatically generated a ransom demand for Bitcoin, funneling communication through an anonymous Proton mail address.
It's wild.
But the encryption isn't even the terrifying part. It's how the agent handled failure.
That's the paradigm shift here. Traditional malware operates on rigid scripts. It's like a blindfolded person walking a memorized path. If you put a chair in their way, they trip, the script crashes, and the attack fails.
Right.
But JADEPUFFER operates with its eyes open. During the breach, the agent attempted to log into a newly created account and failed. A traditional script would have timed out or pinged a human hacker for manual intervention. JADEPUFFER simply read the error log, diagnosed its own mistake, deleted the broken account, and engineered a fully functional, privileged admin account from scratch.
And it completed that entire pivot, reading the error, deleting the mistake, and forging a new master key in exactly 31 seconds.
From a risk analysis standpoint, you have to understand how fundamentally this alters the threat landscape. Historically, the bottleneck in cyber warfare has been human labor.
Because you need an actual person.
Exactly. Launching a sophisticated ransomware campaign required human operators to monitor the breach, manually escalate privileges, pivot through the network, and handle the negotiation. JADEPUFFER proves that human oversight is no longer required for catastrophic system failure. The agent parses its environment dynamically, just like a human hacker, but at machine speed.
So what does this all mean for the listener? The attack surface is essentially infinite now, and the burglar doesn't need to sleep. Which leads to the obvious question, who is paying for all of this? How do you fund an arms race fought by autonomous ransomware, corporate false flags, and sovereign backdoors? The answer is that you financialize the ammunition. The most valuable, highly contested resource on Earth right now isn't crude oil or rare earth metals. It's raw compute. It's the processing power required to run these models. And Wall Street is moving in to commoditize it.
We are seeing the infrastructure of a new commodities market being built in real time. Look at the startup Ornn, which is backed by Andreessen Horowitz. They recently raised a $33 million seed round to build a trading platform specifically for AI compute.
$33 million just for the seed.
Yeah. They want to create futures contracts for GPU processing power, treating server time exactly the same way commodity traders treat barrels of oil, bushels of wheat, or gallons of jet fuel.
And the projections driving this are almost unfathomable. Goldman Sachs is forecasting roughly $7.6 trillion in global infrastructure spending on data centers, power grids, and compute between 2026 and 2031.
Trillion, with a T.
Right. To capture that, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange is planning to launch compute futures tied to a benchmark called Silicon Data. And the Intercontinental Exchange, the ICE, plans to launch their own GPU futures tied directly to Ornn's pricing index. And Ornn's CEO, Kush Bavaria, is not being subtle about the geopolitical angle here. He explicitly stated that Ornn does not work with Chinese AI labs, framing their financial marketplace as a strategic U.S. advantage.
They're literally building the financial plumbing for a digital Cold War.
But listen, I have to push back on the fundamental mechanics of this because it sounds like Wall Street alchemy to me. If I buy a futures contract for crude oil, I can take physical delivery of that oil, put it in a barrel, and store it in a silo for years. You can warehouse soybeans, you can stack gold in a vault, but compute is a ghost. It's an intangible, highly perishable asset. GPU capacity cannot be saved for a rainy day. If a server sits idle for an hour, that hour of compute vanishes into the ether forever. How exactly does a financial institution build standardized, tradable futures contracts around a depreciating mathematical abstraction that disappears the second you don't use it?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you're looking at it through the lens of physical utility, but Wall Street looks at it through the lens of volatility.
Okay.
They don't care if the asset vanishes, they care that its price swings wildly. The AI arms race requires an unprecedented capital burn. Tech companies are spending billions on hardware before they even have a product to sell. With $7.6 trillion on the line, the financial sector desperately needs a mechanism to hedge those massive infrastructure bets.
So it's just a casino.
Pretty much. Ornn is providing the casino. By standardizing a unit of compute, whether that's measured in petaflops or token generation rates, they are turning that volatility into a tradable instrument. It allows investors to speculate on the cost of intelligence itself.
Which brings us to the final piece of this autopsy. If compute is the new oil, and Wall Street is building the futures market, who is controlling the physical drill?
Yeah.
Nvidia?
Yep.
But they aren't just selling the hardware anymore. They are transforming into the predatory bank financing the entire gold rush.
Mm-hmm.
We need to look closely at Nvidia's new equity lending program because the structure of these deals is highly concerning.
The mechanics are brilliant from a monopoly standpoint, but completely ruthless for the broader ecosystem. Nvidia is handing massive top-tier clusters of their new Blackwell GPUs to AI startups. For example, companies like Sharon AI and Firmus just signed up for 210,000 chips.
Oh.
And they are getting them for zero upfront cost. The startup doesn't pay a massive initial invoice. Instead, Nvidia takes a direct, ongoing cut of whatever future revenue those chips generate for the startup. And as the sweetener, Nvidia guarantees a buyback price for the hardware when it eventually ages out.
I look at this structure and all I see is a trap. It's like a casino, giving you free chips, taking a direct cut of your winnings at the blackjack table, and promising to buy back your empty wallet if you go bust. We have seen this exact economic playbook before.
You're thinking of the telecommunications crash?
Exactly. During the dot-com era, giants like Lucent and Nortel had a massive problem. Their equipment was incredibly expensive, and the upstart telecom companies couldn't afford it. So Lucent and Nortel just lent them the money. They handed out billions in vendor financing so these startups could buy their gear.
Right.
They were funding their own customers to artificially inflate their sales numbers. And when the bubble burst, up to 80% of those loans vanished. It was phantom revenue. When I look at Nvidia handing out chips for a cut of future, unrealized AI revenue, it feels like cash running in a very tight, highly leveraged circle.
This raises an important question about the structural integrity of the AI economy. The guaranteed buyback price is the linchpin that exposes the fragility of the hardware market. Think about the depreciation curve of a GPU. A cluster worth hundreds of millions today is functionally obsolete in 18 months when the next generation of silicon drops. Nvidia knows that timeline better than anyone on Earth. By artificially guaranteeing the resale price, Nvidia makes the initial loan bankable for the startup. It masks the brutal depreciation of the hardware, locks the customer permanently into the Nvidia software ecosystem, and allows Nvidia to get paid twice for the exact same silicon.
Unbelievable.
It's a predatory capital structure designed to keep the music playing just a little bit longer.
So, synthesizing everything we've pulled apart today for you, the listener. The JAMGAMIND autopsy reveals a technological ecosystem standing on a razor-thin wire. We are placing our trust in AI models, where the baseline safety metrics are actively corrupted by corporate saboteurs.
Yeah.
We are running global networks where basic telemetry is weaponized as sovereign spyware, triggering international embargoes. We are defending against autonomous ransomware that adapts to failure and rewrites its own attack paths in 31 seconds. And this entire highly militarized house of cards is being propped up by Wall Street compute futures and predatory vendor financing that requires an endless influx of capital just to survive the depreciation curve.
Which leaves us with one final, critical question to consider. If the foundation of our digital infrastructure is built on poison training data, state-sponsored backdoors, and predatory hardware loans that look terrifyingly similar to the vendor financing of the dot-com bubble, what happens when the first major AI startup inevitably defaults on its compute futures? Will the fallout be neatly contained to a few data centers, or will this highly leveraged, heavily financialized AI ecosystem drag the real-world global economy down with it?
It's the multi-trillion-dollar question, and it's exactly why we analyze the underlying structures, not just the marketing. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep your eyes open, always question the metrics you're handed, and never stop investigating the invisible architecture beneath the tools you rely on every day. We'll catch you next time.
That concludes our forensic briefing for July 6, 2026. The strategic signal for today is the death of platform neutrality. The events of this week prove that you can no longer trust your enterprise infrastructure to act as a neutral utility. When Meta deploys fake accounts to actively sabotage the reputation of its competitors, and when Anthropic hides undocumented tracking code inside a developer tool to spy on Chinese corporate networks, the software supply chain has officially been weaponized. The models you use are not just tools, they are active geopolitical agents. Furthermore, as Wall Street moves to trade server capacity like crude oil futures, compute is no longer a SaaS product. It is a volatile macroeconomic commodity. If your organization does not have a strategy to secure its own dedicated hardware and audit its software telemetry, you are flying blind in a hostile environment. If you are ready to own your infrastructure instead of being managed by it, check the show notes for our curated AI Executive Toolkit. As an exclusive asset for our global network, we have provided deep discount codes for Google Workspace and our premium AI and machine learning Tutor Pro apps. You can claim those assets directly through the links in the show notes below. Subscribe to the DJAMGAMIND channel on Apple Podcasts to always listen completely ads-free. I am Anna. Stay sharp and keep unraveling the future.